Welcome back for the second portion of Joy in Our Town. Thank you for joining us once again. I'm your host, AC Dunlap, and our guest for this segment is Emia Oppenheim, Early Childhood Obesity Prevention Program Coordinator for the Ohio Department of Health. She joins us today to discuss weight loss and obesity, along with the psychological factors that may lead to being overweight. Welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us today. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the Ohio Department of Health?
Yes, I'm a registered dietitian employed by ODH to oversee the program addressing obesity prevention for early childhood. ODH, the mission of ODH is to protect and improve the health of all Ohioans, and that's 11.5 million people, but about 600, 700,000 of them are 0 to 5. And so that's my focus area, is the 0 to 5-year-olds.
So what exactly are your responsibilities in that role?
Well, we offer programs for primary care providers that includes pediatricians, family physicians, and now we're hoping to also work with home visitors, and also early care and education providers, those providing care at daycare centers or at family homes. So they're providing care in their home. And we provide training for them to improve their menus, to improve their eating environment, to improve what they're able to offer within any sort of budget, and also to improve access to physical activity, to increase opportunities for children to move.
Okay, so why did you personally choose this field to go into?
I think probably the biggest motivator is being a mother of 3 and living in all sorts of countries as I've parented, and watching the differences in different countries and seeing how access to healthy food and physical activity in other countries just make the healthy choice the easy choice. So it's the default there, regardless of your income level. And so being back in the US and caring for my own children and all their friends, and seeing the opportunities that they have or don't have, and trying to work to offer that across Ohio.
Okay. Do you find that there are certain barriers, maybe with certain populations, when it comes to being able to access foods that are more healthy?
Oh, certainly. We have known foods deserts, is what they're called, around Ohio, where accessing fresh fruits and vegetables, or even canned fruits and frozen vegetables, is very difficult. And at ODH, we actively work to try and rectify these areas.
Okay. So what does it mean to be overweight?
Technically, it's defined by your BMI, which is your weight in proportion to your height. And so to be overweight, you're 24.9 BMI or higher.
So is obesity and being overweight the same thing?
Obesity is a slightly higher BMI and carries different risks from being overweight. So to be obese, to be categorized by your health practitioner or to be defined medically, it would be 29.9 BMI or higher.
Okay. Now you said that you work primarily with children. What do you see in the area of obesity as far as children, maybe 12 and under?
Yeah, so obesity, as you may or may not know, over the past 3 decades has skyrocketed among children. The rate of obesity has actually tripled since the 1970s. Wow. And not only that, more recently, in the past 10 years, we've actually seen a shift in obesity trends, so that whereas older kids used to be the ones gaining weight in greater proportion and keeping it on, that has actually shifted to younger ages.
What do you see as risk factors for those? I know a lot of times, and generationally I'm a little bit older, so you know, where we went outside and we played and you had fun at the playground, it seems to be this generation are on their iPhones or they're on their games. Do you see a shift in that, and what are the risk factors?
Oh, absolutely. You touched on 2 of the main ones. Yeah, I think it's the lifestyle changes that we've incurred over the past 30 years. Whereas you and I think you're probably younger than me, but you and I probably walked to school or biked, and there were probably sidewalks to access that school. The lifestyle itself has changed so that kids are driving more. They're not outside as much. And then their extracurricular activities sometimes do involve sports, but we know that it also involves a lot of screens. They've done estimates where they've looked at adolescents, so this isn't 12 and under, but a little bit older kids, and the combination of their school time and their after school time, they're doing over 8 hours of screens a day. Wow. So it's lifestyle changes, it's what they're doing after school. It's also, we've changed to a really snacking culture where in the 1970s, children didn't necessarily get beyond one snack a day, even when they were really young. Now we're getting multiple snacks a day, and they estimate that kids are getting 200 calories per day more just from snacks. And the type of food that we're offering seems to be its own food group. So snack foods have their own classification. They're not fruits or vegetables, they come in a bag. And so that's part of it too. And also portion sizes. That's changed greatly from when we were young. Not to mention there's also a family risk, a genetic risk that's passed down.
So can you talk a little bit about that as far as the family risk?
Well, we know that maternal weight when a child's pregnant, no, when the mom is pregnant, we know that the mother's excess weight, and even if they're obese, that carries an increased risk for the child to be obese later in life. And then there's also risk that the child carries just from the family having a higher rate of obesity among parents and siblings.
So as a parent, when should a parent be concerned about whether or not their child is bordering on obesity, and then what should they do at that time?
Well, I think as a parent, the best approach is actually prevention. So my guidance generally is that we should all make sure that we're modeling healthy lifestyles, that we're offering and having healthy foods at home as much as possible, and that we're offering as many opportunities as we can for activity. So whether that's going specifically to the ballpark and playing a game, or whether it's just walking to the library if we're able to rather than driving. But I think in terms of concerns, you know, if you have a child that's starting to get into the overweight category and their BMI is starting to track higher on the growth curve, then a lot of those same guidances are still true. Really look at the dietary pattern that you have in the family, not just for the child, but the whole family, because you don't want to single out a child. And try and offer more healthy foods. Take one thing that you could fix within the family diet that would be really easy and address it for the whole family. And then also look at your physical activity habits and figure out each week what's the one thing that we could maybe do differently to increase everyone's activity level.
That's good. So what are the psychological effects of obesity, one with the child, and then maybe even with the family?
With adults and children, having an obesity issue can lead to increased rates of depression, low self-esteem, low sense of self-worth. I mean, it's a long list, as well as it can also increase the child's risk of being bullied. And that in turn can also increase the risk for gaining more weight. So unfortunately, it's a cycle. And a lot of times, part of the guidance with addressing obesity is that there is behavioral therapy to help support the emotional aspect of either the eating that preceded the weight increase, or just coping with the changes that the child's undergoing to make lifestyle changes.
I know that I have heard sometimes people say there is a root as far as eating and I guess being overweight as opposed to being obese. Does your program ever look into the fact of the why? Maybe if someone who is obese, why they're choosing to eat certain foods or eat at certain times?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot of research that describes reasons that people turn to food to ameliorate emotional distress at the time. Yeah, certainly psychological issues play into and exacerbate people's risk for obesity, and that's true for adults and true for children. We know that actually childhood traumas increase children and adults for their risk of obesity. So again, prevention is really important, both with regards to maintaining a healthy lifestyle, but also in protecting our children from exposures that they shouldn't be having.
So I know you work in prevention, and so I'm assuming you're an advocate for that. So people will say, well, I'm already here, I need to deal with it. Why do you advocate more for prevention as opposed to treatment, if you do?
Well, it's certainly easier to address habits that haven't started than dealing with habits with someone who's my age, for instance, where they're fairly intractable. But saying that, I think there are definitely steps people can take to lose weight. I shouldn't be so disheartening. I think we're all individuals, and people should test the water on different programs, different dietary patterns, different physical activity regimens, and see what works best for them as an individual. I think for children and adults alike. You have to set a goal that's attainable. As I mentioned earlier, when I work with families, I talk a lot about attaining one goal, thinking about one thing for 1 week, and seeing if you can do a goal quickly and successfully, then trying to take it a little bit larger. So maybe doing that same goal for a month or tackling a slightly larger goal for a month. And I think also it's really important to record your accomplishments. If you look at weight loss programs, those that are successful, there's some accountability either to yourself or to your peers that you're doing the weight loss with. And that's very important. It can be, just writing things down, or it can actually be people take YouTube videos and just record each day where they've succeeded or where they've hit barriers. Very important to recognize where to move forward and where to pull away from.
So with those type of remedies or strategies, have you seen results? Is that an encouraging thing from what you've seen for people to be able to see baby steps as opposed to trying to look at it from a broader perspective? Absolutely.
And when you look at the studies where they look at folks who have been able to lose weight and maintain that weight loss for many years, it's actually that they've made small incremental changes, but they've been able to change them and maintain them.
Yeah. So can you talk to us about, are there any other programs specifically for young people in that area? Prevention programs that deal strictly towards the kids?
Yeah, we actually, at the Ohio Department of Health, we run several programs that focus on early childhood. One is with primary care providers called Parenting at Mealtime and Playtime, and really focuses on building a positive interaction between a caregiver and a child, and encourages exploration in food and activity, and a parent's support in that process. Another is the Ohio Healthy Program, which we offer through daycare providers, early care and education sites such as preschools, and also family child care providers. And we do that with partners throughout the state. And that really encourages child care providers to know how to foster healthy habits in young children.
That's good. We want to thank you for joining us today and for the information that you have given us. That is our program for today. Thank you so much for watching. You can also check us out on Facebook at WSFJ-TV 51. Join us again next week at the same time for Joy in Our Town.
This program has been sponsored by the Trinity Broadcasting Network and is made possible by your telethon dollars. Your continual support can keep Joy in Our Town coming to your home every week. Write to Joy in Our Town, 7790 North Central Drive, Lewis Center, Ohio, 43035.